I'm Alice Harris, Tech Service Rep, BASF. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about fungicides, application timings, and things to look out for as you begin scouting for diseases heading into July and even into August. It's never too late to start scouting for disease, so we're going to walk through a little bit of what to look for today. Now, given the conditions at the end of June, it's really hard to start thinking about our disease and disease development. It was hot, it was dry, we didn't have a lot of humidity, not a lot of rainfall. But it's still good practice to start scouting for your diseases because we know how quickly those environmental patterns can shift and we can have a boom of right temperatures and environmental conditions for that disease to develop, whether it's in corn or in your soybeans. Right now, I'm staying in a cornfield in the southwest part of the state. We have a lot of variability when we look at Ohio as a whole in what stages we can see in our corn. I've seen things that are still in V2 all the way to what we're standing in right now as V8. This is a really excellent time to start scouting for disease, as we know some stuff can come in a little bit early. It's also good to stay proactive in your scouting just to make sure that we're staying ahead of a lot of these key diseases like tar spot. Now, the cornfield I'm in currently is around V8, and while it's maybe a little too early to make some fungicide applications, it's not too early to start checking for disease. We know that things like tar spot can stay in the soil, and we want to make sure that we're scouting early. We've had a lot of high humidity days in June, so there's a good chance we could start seeing it come in. We have seen it already in some of the states west of us, so keeping a strong eye is going to help us have that proactive planned application later on. So making sure that we're looking at the lower parts of the plant, scouting out these leaves, checking for those lesions. Fortunately, I haven't seen any here in this field, but that's not to say it won't come in later. So again, keeping your eye out, keeping an eye on your field, and making sure you're having good, timely fungicide applications. One of the biggest questions I get really is when should we make our fungicide application in corn? And while right now we're at V8 in this area, some people might be a little further along, some people might be a little bit behind. We want to make sure that we're hitting the biggest return on our investment as well as having the most disease control we can possibly have with a single application. And when we do that, the best timing we can really have is that VT to R1 or first tassel to R1. And just a few fields down, we're now looking in our soybean fields. And much like corn, we have a wide range of what stages our soybeans are in as we look across the entire state. Now, while these soybeans are currently in V4, yours might be a little bit ahead, they might be a little bit behind. You might already start seeing flowers on your plants. So we want to make sure that we're timing our fungicide applications for our diseases that we face in our soybeans. So when it comes to application timing in soybeans, there's a couple of different timings that you might want to consider. First would be right now. So thinking about our herbicide pass as we make our post application, but throwing in a fungicide there to help with early season diseases like septoria. Now these plants are only in V4, but we already are starting to see some early season septoria appear down here on the bottom parts of the plants. The second timing we really want to think about is an R3 application. You can go a little early at R2, but making sure we hit it before R3 is we want to protect against something like frog eye leaf spot, which can be a very impactful disease, especially if we have a good year for it. Now, while these beans are only at V4, we got a ways to go till R3. And what we're looking for an R3 growth stage is when the pods on the plant are at least 3/4 of an inch or less, and there's at least one of those on the top 4 nodes of the plant. So that's the stage that we're looking for to make that application in your soybeans. Now, while we haven't had any confirmed so far in Ohio, frog eye leaf spot is a very impactful disease that tends to come in later, a little bit more closer to that R4, R5 stage. That's why it's so important to have your application out prior to that. So we target that R2 to R3 timing to make sure we have some protection out there as the disease tries to set in. While we might not always know what the weather is going to do, we do know that we can get consistent results using a performance-driven fungicide like Veltima and Revitec. You're going to get not only excellent disease control with those products, either in your corn or your soybeans, but you're also going to help with some environmental stressors like drought, which standing right now in this field looks a lot like that's where we're heading. But we all know the weather can change quick and fast, and so making sure that we have good applications to support.